Wow, that's powerful. We want to remind everyone, we're going to start shortly, but we wanted to remind everyone that if you do not want to be recorded today, to turn off your cameras. You can still watch what's going on and hear what's going on, but if you don't want yourself to be on the recording, please turn off your cameras. Carolina, did you want to introduce the event?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. Today is the closing of the spring semester of the Artivism, the Power of Transformed Societies initiative. Welcome. We hope that this will be a delightful experience for all. And this experience is hosted by Adelphi University, Gottesman's Libraries, Teachers College, Columbia University, and Sing for Hope. Now, I'll pass it on to Dr. Lake, that she will introduce now the student ambassador for the evening. Thank you again to all the participants that have made this initiative such a powerful spring engagement. And now we invite you also to come again for the fall and the following spring 2022. Take it away, Dr. Lee.
Great. It is my pleasure to introduce today's student ambassador, Melanie Rosa Chavez. She's a Long Island native and is in her third year of undergraduate studies at Adelphi, where she is a Livermore Global Scholar, double majoring in Communication Sciences and Disorders and Spanish, with a certificate in Translation Studies. She currently serves as the president of the Livermore Global Scholars Student Leadership Council, treasurer of the National Student Speech Language Hearing Association, and she's also a peer mentor in the Bridges to Adelphi program. In the future, Melanie hopes to become a speech language pathologist and to work with diverse populations to create therapy strategies that are both accessible and sustainable to all communities. Welcome, Melanie.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Lake. Welcome to today's session. I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce myself and some of the initiatives that I've personally taken part in. So, as previously mentioned, I am the treasurer of the National Student Speech Language Hearing Association here at Adelphi University. This is a national organization under the American Speech and Hearing Association, also known as ASHA. And we are a smaller chapter in the student section. At Adelphi, we are all a cohort of students who are working to become future speech language pathologists, audiologists, and speech scientists. So part of our club and part of our initiative is to learn about the different cultures of the world, as we believe it's significant to our growth and the growth of others. So one thing that we are constantly pursuing and wishing to learn about is the deaf community and how we can further expand our horizons to learn more information about all people everywhere. So one amazing thing about our department is that we offer coursework, both American Sign Language levels 1 through 4, as well as expressive sign language, where students have the opportunity to learn about art through sign, whether that be poetry, singing, and various forms of art as well. So one thing that I would like to speak to you a little bit about is some of our past initiatives. So as a club, we have also attended different events in New York City where we had the opportunity to see slam poetry live. And we were also able to see different visual concerts, as well as bringing our ASL club into our club and hosting various collaborations. So now I would like to take the opportunity to introduce our presenters today, Dr. Julia Silvestri and Ms. Yiru Chen. So Julia Silvestri is an adjunct assistant professor in the Program for Education of Deaf and Hard of Hearing at Teachers College, Columbia University. She has worked as an educator and administrator in the range of schools for the deaf, and public school programs in New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. Through her work at Teachers College, she has led and expanded the award-winning ASL Club and Deaf Music Project over a period of 6 years, and was awarded the Faculty Advisor of the Year Award for the 2019-2020 school year. Yiru Chen is an award-winning film director and poet. Born and raised in Shanghai, China, she graduated from NYU Tisch School of Arts with a major in film and television production and minors in psychology and American Sign Language. Currently, Yiru is pursuing her master's degree at Teachers College, Columbia University for Deaf and Hard of Hearing education. Her short film, Handscape, starred non-professional actors from the Shanghai deaf community while addressing a hard of hearing boy's love for music and desire to dance despite his mother's outright disapproval. Yiru remains an advocate for sign language education and arts, as well as accessibility in both countries. Welcome, Dr. Julia Silvestri and Ms. Yiru Chen.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Melanie, much appreciated. And thank you for having us, Adelphi University, for inviting us to come, and Professor Lake, as well as Melanie and Professor RG and Carolina. Thank you so much. We are happy to be working with Adelphi again, especially with this particular project, and to be collaborating and focusing on art and different tools for promoting positive transformation. At this point, we'd like to give you a little bit of background information about our project, the Deaf Music Project, and what we've been doing for the past several years. And then I'll go ahead and turn it over to Yiru, who will talk more about her involvement and participation in this year's project, which was a documentary film. And she will be talking about her experience as a videographer, filmographer, and how she did the documentary and incorporated art and artivism within that documentary. We're looking forward to talking with all of you about future collaborations as well. So we're going to go ahead and share the screen now. Give me just one moment. Perfect. This is such a beautiful picture from the project. Nice, lovely background. So just a bit of history and background about Teachers College Deaf Music Project. This project actually began back in 2015. The Deaf Education Program worked in collaboration with the Office of Access and Services for Individuals with Disabilities in collaboration to set up this event with a very diverse, to just look specifically for people with disabilities and diversity and the community initiatives working towards teaching music to deaf children. That event included the leadership of Dr. Yi Wang, our program director. And she was one of the panelists on that particular panel. And on that panel, there was quite a robust discussion about literacy and language, as well as music and utilizing music as a tool to develop language. During that discussion, we decided to focus on the concept of universal design for learning, UDL. And that's really the best point of focus from which to access music education for students who are deaf or hard of hearing. After the panel that year, we did make our first documentary. That documentary focused on the panel itself and recorded the process of the event. The spirit of universal design for learning truly values UDL and language, and Dr. Wang was a strong proponent of that and carried it through the project and carried it forward with the project as well. In 2017, Teachers College ASL Club, the students and participating members were very excited about participating in the Deaf Music Project. They decided to host an event called the Deaf Music Universal Design Classroom and Environment. Again, this was a panel discussion. And there were quite a few people who participated, did a lot of brainstorming, and we created a 13-minute documentary. That documentary focused on how universal design for learning could be developed and applied in public music education within the educational classroom setting. That research helped to find out how teachers and interpreters and deaf performers and students could all work together to apply universal design for learning. And that really opened the discussion about performance design as well, but mostly focused on the educational perspective. So when we talk about universal design for learning and valuing the different ways of learning and types of learning, because all of our brains are diverse, none of us are exactly the same. Just like our hair or our eyes, the way that our brains work are very different from one another. We have different hobbies, different preferences, and no one is exactly like one other person. So if we do universal design for learning, more people have access in an equitable fashion. We can show information in a variety of different ways, as well as entice students to express themselves in a variety of different ways. We can provide various opportunities for connection, connecting students to one another as well as to the material. So I'll give a moment to let you read this slide, and then I will go ahead and sign some of the tools as well so that you can get an idea of how universal design for learning incorporates auditory learning, visual learning, tactile learning, and kinesthetic learning. Representation for auditory learners might be having loud sounds like amplification or having close proximity to the person who's making the sounds, or having audio descriptions. Representation for visual instruction could be using manual descriptions, using your hands, using sign language, using captioning, showing the musical notes, showing visual movement, showing black and white motion, colors and lights, use of shadow, use of smoke, also various hand shapes and different mediums on the speaker, placing a cup of water on a speaker or sand on a speaker to see how it moves. As far as tactile representation, this can happen through conduction, being able to feel the vibrations. It can happen by placing a hand or another body part on the speakers, also by holding balloons that will vibrate with the music. Wearing touch instruments so that they can feel the vibrations, musical vests. As far as kinesthetic learners, actually moving, copying the movements that are being made, utilizing hands to copy the movements as well. So there are many different ways to represent information that appeal to all learners. In the next section, you'll see how that type of learner can use their ability for expression. So for auditory learners, this might be someone who sings or uses an instrument to express themselves. For visual learners, we might have signed poetry or signed music, also visual movement, gestures, and iconic signs. For our tactile learners, we use touch. We can use tactile sign language. And also sensory instruments, instruments like drums where they can feel, or even those like a violin where maybe they would feel it on their face as well. And for our kinesthetic learners, we can have them dance or clap or even stamp their feet. As far as engagement and why students would be participating, what would get them to participate, for our auditory learners, we could have spoken instruction, also open dialogue, and we can talk about composing music, composition. For our visual learners, we can have students translate music to sign, come up with ideas for notation, how to represent notation, utilize projectors, use a game like GarageBand. That's an app that's on the computer where they can create music. Also use Ableton. That's a type of software. And you can connect the music to lights. For our tactile learners, you can have them experiment and be creative and figure out which sensitivities they prefer and how they go together. And for our kinesthetic learners, they can work on choreography or ASL poetry. They may also want to sign music, and they can incorporate facial expressions. These are all tools to start implementing and utilizing universal design for learning. These apply to music education, but they also apply to any of the arts, any kind of education. And they meet the needs of a diverse set of learners. Remember, this is information that we present about valuing universal design for learning. Dr. Wang was a strong advocate of this. Unfortunately, Dr. Wang passed away very recently, just in February. And so the spirit of universal design for learning is critical for us at TC. That legacy is very much a very foundational piece of our project. In 2018, that was a very special year. The ASL Club collaborated with our ASL 2 class, as well as the fact that there were 2 music education students who happened to be in that class, one of whom actually became deaf. That year, we had a deaf composer join our class as well. And we all worked together and came up with music theory and a music curriculum called SETS, S-E-T-S, and this is how we sign that. Just like you see the music notes on a staff, SETS we sign like this because it's a bit more abstract, not quite as linear as you might see on a regular staff of music. So you see the picture of an ear and then that same kind of wave that shows the sounds and the music. And they're really behind the sound. The music has even more than just the notes, just the sounds that you would hear. So that year, the event focused primarily on really being creative and coming up with different ideas for this curriculum and ways to experience music together in diverse groups, utilizing the curriculum and utilizing UDL. Another documentary film was made to explain the SETS curriculum. So SETS stands for, actually represents music itself. So it's sound, but it's beyond sound. It's in the space and the emotion, the time, and the shape. That's what SETS stands for. So space, emotion, time, and shape. So the emotion can be the feeling of the vibration and the different things that are happening. And so when we want to really take a look at what that means, especially when we look at time, we can look at where the notes fall within the measures. We can look for patterns and sequences. And for the shape, visually, we can look at how things feel and how the music flows on the page and have that musical experience, see the musicality of it. The two music education students who came together to work with the deaf composer came up with this curriculum of 5 different categories, or 5 different areas. The first focus is on time and tempo and how to measure time. Teaching movement through walking or utilizing the body to line up. Taking steps in time with the rhythm and the tempo of the music. Showing the space and the emotion and the time. Feeling the rhythm, feel your pulse, feel your heartbeat. The second focus is on tempo and rhythm. This focus is specifically on emotion and time. It's an explanation of the music curriculum and concepts. Again, they use the walking and the changing of the body to represent how slow or how quickly the music is moving. The third focus is on rhythm and movement. This particular one focuses on time and shape. It does include the use of American Sign Language. We build on that walking with the taking the steps in time with the tempo, and then we might add a sign like love, 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 love. Walk, 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 walk. And then we could add in maybe 2 or 3 signs in connection with whatever is represented on the musical staff. Focus 4 is on movement and stillness, sound and silence. This focuses in the SETS curriculum on space, time, and shape. It shows us when to give energy and when to pause. It's almost like freeze dance. So the students will move and clap, follow the rhythm, etc. And then there will be a pause. And this will follow a pattern. Objects touching each other create energy, and that's reviewed here as well. So is there energy or is there silence? So if we have auditory sound, then we're going to have visual movement. If there's auditory silence, then we have a pause and we're still. So it promotes the ability to be creative and also supports the idea of movement and stillness versus sound and silence. And then finally, our 5th focus is on loud and soft. The dynamics of the music. And we do that through heavy steps and soft steps, showing strong movements and also showing that matching with loud sounds or soft sounds with soft movements. And at this point, we can also add in the storytelling piece, a quiet story that becomes louder and more energetic. the loudest part of the story, and then maybe it gets soft again, and it's a softer piece of the story. And we follow along with that pattern and the rhythm and tempo. And through time, we add in all of these pieces, and that helps to build that knowledge of musicality. This curriculum we are trying to share and have people use. That documentary film did help some with our trying to get the word out. But we really wanted more experience with the community and the community making music. So in 2019, a decision was made to go ahead and actually host a show, a performance, and a conference. The show was the opportunity to show a variety of different pieces of the set's curriculum. We show space and emotion. We show time and shape. Then we had a conference that focused on the foundational concepts of poetry, technology, and sets. From this event, we developed a toolkit. And this was to help promote the idea of utilizing this curriculum to make music education more accessible. Recently, I just showed on the last few slides the graphics that went along with sets. And those graphics were actually uploaded to a website along with the toolkit so that educators could take advantage of that and artists could use it as well. That year, we were also able to receive funding to support 20 sub-pack vests. And I will be talking more about that later and how we started using those. After that event, we did receive another grant from the diversity office, and that was for the toolkits themselves. So the graphics for the curriculum, as well as our documentary and other resources were able to be uploaded onto our website, which is feel-themusic.com. Dash is in between the words. So that year, we decided we wanted to focus more on the classroom and application in the classroom and doing some research and development for two reasons. The first reason was to provide evidence that art really does help our students learn language. We had the sub-packs and we had the vibration and the sets curriculum, all of that together, and how that could support deaf children in developing their, and hearing children develop their knowledge in music and language and emotion. The second reason was that we wanted to know more specific details on what parts of this artistic project worked and what parts of the design were effective. Also, how teachers would be able to develop these skills and implement them. So in 2020, as you know, 2020 was a bust. Nothing happened. We couldn't move forward with our plan. 2020 went off the rails. Our show and our conference got postponed and then postponed again. And then finally, we decided to just go ahead and have the concert and the conference online. So we had it all through Zoom, which was a lot. It was a lot, but it was very successful. The performers, some of them were live. Some of them actually pre-recorded their performances. And that was the same for the conference. Most of the conference was actually provided live. It was focused on creating music and interpreting. Now this year in 2021, we had the same type of situation where we held an online virtual concert and conference. Their performance was great. We learned how to do the performance online. We pre-recorded the entire show this year. The reason we decided to do that is because we just felt that it was a way to honor Dr. Wang this year since we had recently lost her. Also, it was a way to really value her support of universal design for learning. And so we wanted to make sure that our show incorporated a diverse audience, deaf people, people who are deafblind, people who are deaf with diverse disabilities, diverse education, diverse backgrounds, and linguistic and cultural backgrounds. We included different tools and different designs. We partnered with the Office of Disabilities. And we worked with various deaf schools in the area. Through that, we developed our show, and we had an introduction to each piece of the show, each performance, giving some background information and trying to keep each film very simple and clear so that we could show patterns, style, and give the message. The conference was more in depth. The conference focused on different disabilities and different use of language and culture and different experiences with language and culture. We did include one presenter, Chloe Thompson. Chloe was involved with the Deaf Music Project. This is now her third year that she's been involved with her fourth year that she's been involved with the project. Chloe talked about how she utilizes the SET's curriculum and her own way and style of providing music education for students who are deaf and hard of hearing, and those who are deaf and hard of hearing and also have additional disabilities. This year was the third diverse community grant. We focused on research and collaboration with this grant and how to partner and the way to provide more research on deaf education, equality, and the arts. The project included an accessibility handbook that, in collaboration with the Disability Office, specifically about music accessibility. There was also a documentary film. Yiru will soon be talking about her documentary film. We had a lot of discussion and collaboration and brainstorming. We're really looking forward to continued collaboration, and that starting this semester and going forward. We want to develop research and develop a research proposal, which we're working on right now. This will be in conjunction with the show and with accessibility and design for accessibility. We're really excited to show Yiru's film and for the subsequent discussion and getting your thoughts about the future of this project and music and documentary films as a tool.
Okay, thank you.
So we started with one project at St. Francis School for the Deaf. This is Chloe, who we were talking about before. She utilizes the SET's curriculum for music education, music instruction. She teaches the class and has discussion, and then she actually made a piece for our show with her students. Yiru and I had the opportunity to work with her, and Yiru was able to make this documentary film with her through research and collaboration. So now I would like to introduce Yiru.
Thank you, Julia. So I'm gonna let my documentary, that video, speak for itself first, and then I'm gonna introduce a little bit about myself and my past thesis work working with the deaf community in China. And then we're gonna talk a little bit more about how I think myself as a filmmaker and a deaf educator, how that could involve in artivism and music education overall. So let me share my screen first.
We know it's possible because music is an experience that actually happens in your brain, and the ears are just an input. We've been trying to figure out how to make music classes more accessible to the deaf, and by using universal design learning. And this year we wanted to go further and create a whole music curriculum for deaf students. Now let's take all these things that you would want to know about music, and let's try to recategorize them, and let's try to work from a deaf perspective.
Put your paws up, 'cause you were born this way, baby.
And now I'm gonna continue sharing my slides. Thank you for the comments. Is it possible to see the slides?
A bit blurry.
All right, cool. So here are two screenshots I took when I was attending Chloe's classes. I never thought as a filmmaker overall will ever editing Zoom recordings as part of my footage. I never experienced that before, but having that experiences of during the pandemic, you want to make a film and about music education, but it's only through the screens. First I found it almost impossible, but then I started to feel very excited because before I actually went into this program, my thesis work at NYU Tisch School of the Arts, as Melanie mentioned in the introduction, it's about a hard of hearing boy expresses his love for music and contemporary dance. But his mother, who's a part of the deaf community, just doesn't approve that. I used that film to talk about issues also among the LGBTQ community and also the mainstreamed school and all the issues that happened right there. So I sort of just not thinking about the music education itself for the deaf children, because I was so focused on, oh, I want to show this boy doing this dance and everything with the music. But then Julia just showed me a totally new way to think about the music, and this chance is very precious in terms of it really showed how it could be very universal and really be very mind-blowing in a way as I started to attend the classes. And when Chloe started to writing on the board, every time I saw something new, I saw something different, like on this picture, when can we feel music touching the speaker? And I immediately thought of when I was started to do my thesis, the first thing was my protagonist putting his hand on the speaker and feeling the vibration. It's exactly the same, even though at the time I had not met Julia or I haven't met Chloe yet, but there's something there that makes me wanna use that movement and use that thing as the beginning of the film. And later, when the film actually got into a lot of film festivals, a lot of a committee told me that they're very impressed by several of the scenes, and the first scene was definitely one of them. So collaborating with deaf music educators was a totally brand new experience for me. And I always thought of music as, because I'm a hearing person, it is sort of a little hard for me to really think of what a deaf person can feel through the music, even though I have experiences practicing my film in these rooms. But it is through this project and this documentary that I finally first time ever to really get to know, oh, how do you really use the SETS to really connect to the students about the concept of music education. It almost like me making a thesis film about music and contemporary dance is a sign, and it's like a little bit more signs that connected together and lead me to this cohort and to this amazing program. But to really connect to our today's topic of Artivism, I think this 5-minute short film is not enough, because to me, as a filmmaker, I think film as an art is shown as not only relevant, but necessary for change. So I use my personal story as an example. After this film was made and got into some film festivals and got premiered at the Shanghai Queer Film Festival and won the Grand Jury Award, actually in the audience, there was a member from the organization that focused on the LGBTQ community within the deaf community that reached out to me and saying, Yiru, I want to bring your film everywhere I go. Everywhere I want to make a presentation, make a speech, I want to make the screening, I want to bring your film with us. Because there is nothing I saw like this film in mainland. I never thought anyone made that. And you really focused on using sign language to express and using non-professional, not hearing actors, but real people from the community to do film. And I really think it represents us. So this is just a very short, anecdote, but I do think that film has the power like that. And not only I made a narrative film, but also I have a lot of experiences working with very established documentarians, and they really inspire me as someone who would spend 10 years and 20 years to only focus on one subject and to make things happen. This is what I find on Google this morning, saying, if you want to search documentary and Artivism, what would you find? And you find all these things really relative to almost every single object of the social issues. And I just wonder if it's possible ever for our program, the Deaf Music Project, to really evolve into a feature film that will go into the theater and just let people to see and feel and to know that music is universal. And then I started thinking back again to my to my experiences, and I remember there was one interview that asked me, what do you like? What is like the main, like the one sentence you wanna say to the audience? I said to them, I want you to feel the film. But actually, what I mean is I want you to feel the character's love for music and her/him, his love for movement, for the body, and his own identity and his own exploration. And I found music, not only music, but the power of documentary of people in real life has the power to make changes everywhere. Just like Julia mentioned at UDL, if we don't have something to document it, if we don't have it, put it on the graphics and show it to people and say, hey, this is important, we need to look at it, then no changes will happen. So I guess this is what my takeaway from doing this project, and my hope for this project as a Chinese and Asian female filmmaker and a deaf educator. I also want to translate and interpret the concept of SETS, the sets, into other languages. And because I believe this is a universal concept, and I know it will affect many, many more children, not only the children in America, not in North America, but every children around the world, because music is universal, and we having this as a model is a beautiful beginning of change overall. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Silvestri and Ms. Chen, for being our artivist today during our closing event for the spring season of Artivism, the power of art for social transformation. This initiative will return in the fall of 2021 with more artivist and thought-provoking and socially transformative conversations. However, before we open the floor to questions from our presenters, we ask that you participate in a short poll that will appear on your screen right now. For more information on this and all of the series' past and upcoming events, please go to our website, www.adelphi.edu/artivism, or follow us on Instagram at Artivism for Shared Humanity, which I believe was shared in the chat, or simply Google Artivism and Adelphi on Google, and you should be able to see it there as well. We are also hosting an open call art installation for all creative thinkers in our Instagram as well. If you would like to get more involved in this year-long initiative, both for the fall or following spring semesters, please contact Stephanie Lake or Carolina Cambronero. So I would now like to ask if there are any questions for our artivists to please use the raise hand function on Zoom, which I believe should be in the bottom of your screen, or just unmute yourself to ask the question or type in the chat.
Thank you so much, Melanie. I wanted, before questions are typed into the chat function and RG will field them, I wanted to thank our artivists today, Ms. Chen and Professor Silvestri, for an amazing presentation. And it was the perfect way to cap off our semester-long series that really just, it started as a relatively confined project and just has expanded in new directions that we didn't anticipate, which are wonderful. And we are now not just a semester-long initiative, but a year-long initiative. This year, we had 14 different events, everything from Reclaiming the Hall, Amplifying Community Voices, Jazz for Justice, Top Musicians, Paying It Forward, The Reflections on War, Reimagining Human Rights, Cinema of Dreams, Sing for Hope, which we actually ended up partnering with. They're one of the 3 organizations that have come on board to work on this. Indigenous Poetry in Women's Voices that Monica Archer presented. Professor Angela Rakis presented The Power of Art, Creativity and Academics. Jazz as Global Citizenship. Arturo O'Farrell. We had Hannah Allen Smith with her photography, Borderlands. And so many different amazing artivists who came and presented, working with our student ambassadors. And we had student ambassadors from Adelphi from just about every College of Arts and Science major, studio art, digital design, traditional music majors, communications, criminal justice, sociology, dance majors, psychology majors, history majors. And all of these students were able to both work with our artivists and get to know some of the artivists, but also to showcase some of their work. They are amazing, and some of the work that they do goes under the radar. So this provided a platform for them to, whether it's the spoken word, poetry, dance workshops, visual, digital art, photography, the amazing work that Melanie and her different groups are doing. And I just wanted to say how thankful I am that I met Carolina, and I knew RG already, and Professor Archer, and all of the wonderful students who agreed to participate in this. RG is going to talk a little bit more about how the project is expanding into international events. So RG, take it away.
Okay, thank you. This was so amazing. It was such a beautiful end to this Artivism initiative for the spring, but it also set such a high standard for what is to come. This was so beautiful. Thank you so, so much. It was very inspiring. When we started, as Dr. Lake said, we never really expected it to get quite this big, and to fill up an entire spring semester, let alone the fall and now into the spring of 2022. In the fall, we will have more international collaborators, one of which I believe is here today. She joins us from Greece, Irini Linavaki, even though there's that 7 or 8 hour time difference. It's past midnight there now. She will be presenting in the fall. We will have presenters from Iran, from South America. We're working on somebody from Poland, India. We're looking to collaborate with the group from India, always with student ambassadors. So if you'd like to be a student ambassador, if you would like to present, we're filled up for the fall, but we still have slots open in the spring. And then who knows where else this will take us. This has been a great experience, not just for us, but for our collaborators as well. We've shown the power that art has to transform, to create bonds, to do good, to really be what propels change through our young people, by having our organizations, our larger ones support our smaller ones. We will now hopefully arrange to have a closing for the spring where we can all meet back very briefly, talk about how we collaborated, how we connected, what we can do better, more of, less of. Thank you so much, Carolina, for bringing this to Adelphi, and for Sing for Hope, and to Stephanie for trusting me to actually go ahead with this, and Dr. Archer for joining, and all our student ambassadors. Thank you so much, Melanie. Melanie, you have connections here, right? Come fall, or maybe even before, make your connections, bring it all to Adelphi and wherever else you go. Thank you so, so much. Thank you.
I would just like to take a second here to thank you all, as the Artivism team has done, and also Sarah Avery, that has been our logistics coordinator, and all of the Artivism team, Ms. Govan, and from Sing for Hope as well, and of course our artivists, that without you, all of this would not be possible. I would like to bring it back to Yiru Chen, that mentioned of the power of art in her documentary film. And in our mission, we also consider that point of it being the passion that you have, and how through art we are all connecting and making that change in the world, right? So in that sense, what would you say? What would you say one takeaway from your presentation today that you would like to leave us with in regards to activating that passion for our audience and for all that might be looking at this video later on?
Well, I feel like me being passionate about my art and deaf education / sign language, it becomes almost like everyone's first impression of me. I feel like it has to be from your body, and it has to be from your heart. And it will be hard sometimes because a lot of us live in the city. It could be gets very noisy, and your sensories, if we have like very fortunate enough to have all the sensories, then we are unfortunate to be blinded by many of them. Then it's very hard to really look inside and find, oh, this is what I actually feel like. Oh, I feel this, and I actually feel like the moment is changing every second, and that every second is actually what I think that prompts the larger change in a society. And to me, whenever I meet someone and I told them about my story, my film, and my encounters in the deaf community, and once they heard them, once they felt that, there's something little change will happen in themselves. And I think that little change will sustain them to make another change when they encounter, let's say, a person with disability in the community. And that little change from me will influence their interaction and their view about that person. And then they will out to make a change because of their interaction with that person. So if there's any takeaway, I would like anyone that will watch this recording and look at our deaf music project, I would say that once you look at it, it will become yours. It's not our own project any longer. It becomes yours too. And it will be our hope that you will bring this moment of feeling, this moment of the change of your feeling, and to let that energy sustain you and to influence and touch other people's lives.
Oh, if I may follow up on that, you hit it right on the dot because I was honored to be in the concert that Dr. Silvestri presented in 2019. And from there, they mentioned this. And Dr. Silvestri, this one is for you because I remember there you guys presented the topic of how can you interpret music? How can you interpret emotion? Right? Each person has to bring their own emotion into the interpretation of music. And that stayed with me. And since then, I have been sharing with all that I can, is music truly universal? We always say music is the international language, right?
Mhm.
Is it so? And it's all thanks to your project. So I'd like you to please expand on this a bit more.
Julia.
Thank you so much, Carolina. Yiru, that was fantastic. You did such a wonderful job. And Carolina, thank you for hosting this event this semester. This is really just absolutely phenomenal. We're so happy to be involved. I think that my takeaway when I envision what will happen in the future is that people who watch Yiru's documentary film and presentation will engage in discussion about the event, and that it shouldn't be, only at one college, only accessible at one school, that this information should become widely accessible, something that different colleges, universities, ASL clubs can work in collaboration with one another and with their local deaf schools and their local deaf community to create these types of projects. Though it doesn't need to just be a TC. I'd like to see this spread out, this concept of accessibility and universal design for learning in both instruction, in public places, in performances, that we utilize this everywhere. So I'm looking forward to your 2021-2022 Adelphi group, and also our ASL club, and hopefully some combined collaboration for our future performances.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I have one. I just wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you so much for sharing your work. As a student, I believe that your work is very inspiring to learn about the different modalities and mediums for learning in general. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for speaking with us about everything that you have to offer. So thank you.
I just want to say congratulations to Dr. Silvestri for being such a great mentor, for inspiring Yiru for doing such great work. And I'm sure there are others like her that you are inspiring. Without you and all of your efforts and your light, this would not have come into play.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. There's a lot of light here.
Okay, so hopefully we can collaborate again. Follow us on Instagram. I put it in the chat. It is at Artivism for the number 4 for shared humanity. We will have our webpage, which is the landing page through Adelphi, updated very soon, which will also include all of our student ambassadors with all of their bios, with their hopes for the future. So they will now be on record on the internet as having taken place in this. This was very brave of them. Thank you again, Melanie. Thank you to all. have a great summer. And we'll be looking after you, and you be looking at us as well. Thank you. Be well, be safe. Yay.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you so much to our interpreters. Geez,
Oh
Louise.
my God, on such short notice. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Closed captioning.
And the closed captioning. Oh, you guys are amazing.